Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm Terry Hofford, body image educator, author, and photographer. And today we are breaking down the myths and realities of body image. So what is body image? Well, essentially it is how we see ourselves. It's a subjective view we have of our bodies. And what that means, it's usually in relation to how we perceive other people to perceive us. So the important thing to know about body image as a whole is that it's not actually rooted in objectivity, but rather rooted in subjectivity. And this is why it can get us into trouble and cause us to have these myths to begin with. So let's break down a few of the common myths, and then I'll come back and explore the realities of those myths. So myth number one is probably the most common, and this is the idea that if I can get my body to look a certain way, then I'll be happy. Well, the unfortunate reality is bodies are ever changing. They don't give a shit about beauty standards. They are just doing what they're meant to do. They are a biological organism that responds to a series of inputs, outputs, and genetics, essentially. And the body's going to do what it wants to do based on that information. And so why this is a myth is because we've been taught that if we get this, then we'll be happy. But even if our body, for one moment, we have the body that we dreamed of and it looks the way we do, life isn't like that. We're not going to be happy consistently because happiness is not a constant state. Happiness is an emotion, just like sadness, anger, joy, and so forth. It is not something that is consistent. It is not a state of being. It is a temporary and fleeting feeling that you have. And so when we convince ourselves that when I have this body that I'll never experience bad things again, it can set us up to feel misled, hurt, and then blame our body some more. And what I've noticed happens, and I've experienced it myself, is that we'll say, oh, well, for example, I lost the weight and I'm still not happy. Well, maybe it's because I need to get my skin tightened up. Oh no, that wasn't it. Maybe it's because I need Botox for my wrinkles. Nope, that wasn't it either. The more we perceive our happiness to lie in a biological thing that's meant to break down, the more we're setting ourselves up for failure. And so that is why that is myth number one. That is the most common amongst everyone. The other thing that I notice that happens with that is, for example, when I was in the middle of my orthorexia, I believed that I had to get to 150 pounds because that's what my BMI said at the time. And by now we know the BMI is not a thing. But anyways, at the time I was super stoked to get down to that weight, and I got close. I was at 157 pounds and assumed that those 7 pounds would make a big difference. But the honest truth was, I remember honestly thinking that if I can get down to that low, well, how much lower could I go? As if I was just playing this game to get myself as small as I could possibly be. And enough was never going to be enough, which is why it caused such intense frustration. Prior to losing all that weight, I didn't think about my body as often. It wasn't a problem because I had grown up in a larger body anyways, but as soon as I was reaching this pinnacle of what society tells me my body should look like, then I thought about it all the time. I weighed myself multiple times a day to make sure that I was maintaining or sustaining. And all I could think about was what foods I could and could not eat. And it became super obsessive. And that is not happiness, let me tell you. Sure, on the outside, maybe I looked like I had the body that I should want to have. But on the inside, I was literally dying and doing anything I possibly could to get smaller and smaller and eventually disappear. No, we deserve so much more than that. So we need to stop putting our hopes and dreams and happiness and contentment in the way that our body looks. We need to move it outside of our body and rather look into how we can build our character instead. But we will get to that when we talk about the realities. So myth number two is that sometimes we presume that everybody else is super confident in their bodies, or the people that have the bodies that we aspire to, hashtag body goals, we assume that their life is happier and they don't struggle with body image. Well, as somebody that has photographed thousands of people in different body shapes and sizes, I can tell you that every single one of them had something they were insecure about within their bodies. And so our brain loves to do this thing, which is all or nothing thinking, and that can lead us to feeling super isolated in the things that we experience as humans. But I am here to tell you that even I, a body image educator, still has negative thoughts about my body. It's what I choose to do with those, however, that is different than how I used to be. And so it's important for us to recognize that every single person has some insecurity. This is capitalism works on this. It loves to feed off of our insecurities so that we buy more things. And so the more that we can actually challenge this idea that we have things that need to be fixed, the more money that we'll save, and the more businesses that prey off of us will go out of business. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But with this myth in particular, I want you to understand you are not alone, and even the people that you aspire to look like, or you see their bodies and assume they have no insecurities at all, that is wrong. Everybody has insecurities. Every single person has insecurities. It's impossible not to. It's a human thing. All right, so finally we are myth number 3. And myth number 3 is this idea that you have to change your body in order to fit in. And now I do want to add some nuance to this myth, because in our society, there are certain consequences to not participating in the societal norm. However, a lot of the times that can prevent us from showing up as our true authentic selves and showing up as we are. Sometimes we have been taught that in order to feel these things or be part of this or experience that, I have to change my body first. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can still do and feel and experience those things with this body you have, and you've probably already done them. You just maybe haven't taken note of it, right? So it's important for us to recognize that no, we do not need to change our body to fit in with the people who are the most important to us. And I want to refer to a post that I made on Instagram, so I'm going to tag it in the description below. But I made a post about this idea of belonging, that we've been set up to fail by learning to belong on the way that our bodies look. And why this sets us up to fail is because if you gain weight, you feel like you don't belong because society is trying to push you to look one kind of way. And then if you have found yourself in a community of plus size people, but then let's say your body starts to lose weight, all of a sudden you feel like you don't belong in either camp anymore. And this is something I've experienced when I experienced that aforementioned weight loss. Suddenly I wasn't accepted over here and I wasn't accepted over here. And in both cases, it was because I was trying to find my belonging based on my body. And so I think what we have to do to set ourselves up as a society to move forward with this is understand that we shouldn't want to belong based on how our bodies look. Instead, we want to belong based on who we are as people, the similar values that we carry, the way that we communicate, the expectations that we have, and so on. And that is how we create flourishing community and true belonging, is when we can show up as ourselves, be accepted as ourselves, and not feel like we have to put parts of ourselves away. And so if you are like, oh, but I'm all alone and I don't have anybody here, I want to assure you that there are people out there. Sometimes what we do, I used to do this as a defense mechanism, was I would put up a wall that I would not let people support me. I would not let myself receive the love and the support that was being offered to me, because I had learned early on that it made me a burden, or I didn't want to take too much, or things like that. And now, since getting a bit older and doing a lot of self-development work, I realized that there have always been people along the way that accepted me for who I was. I was just trying to follow the societal script of amassing more or looking outside looking outside of those people to say like, oh, but when I get these people to like me, then I'll be successful. If those people like me, then I'll do this, right? And it took me a long time to realize like this love was always there. I just didn't let myself receive it. And so I want you to, one of the things I do to help myself through this when my brain is like, nobody loves you, I will literally make a list of people that have proven to love me unconditionally. And you know what? Sometimes a pet is on that list. And at the very least, I am on that list. I have been with me this whole time. And even though sometimes previously the things I would say to myself were way worse than anybody else could, I still had my back. I still want myself to survive. And so I had my back. So I put myself on that list as well. But then once I start writing that list, I realized like, I put my mom and then my sister and then my even family members that like encourage you to change who you are. At the end of the day, if you don't do that, some of them still love you. And so I will put them on. I know my husband loved me unconditionally because my body has changed drastically since we started dating, and he doesn't care and still finds me attractive and lovable. And I've changed my priorities since we started dating. I've become a lot less high achieving and more slow living. And he still loves me unconditionally. And I remember asking him one day, like, are you disappointed in me? And he was like, what are you talking about? No. So he has proven that he has unconditional, for the most part, love for me. But at the end of the day, I can't control what other people do. So some people might leave, some people might do this. At the end of the day, I can only control myself. And I know that I have unconditional love for myself. And so myth number 3, we are busting it and saying, you do not need to change who you are. There are people out there who love you just as you are, and I can assure you that as soon as I started to actually show up and let people see my vulnerability, that's when I found my people. Because I was weird, it allowed them to be weird. Because I was teaching on stage, and I had my hair just looking curly and messy, and one of the girls was like, that lets me think that I could wear my hair curly because I've been straightening it my whole life. Like, just showing up as you are gives other people permission to do it. And if you don't see what you're looking for, become the thing that you are looking for. And that's, you create the community to fit into. That's the best way to do it. All right, so now let's get into the realities of what it means to be a body and have body image. All right, so the first reality of a body image is that it is not a destination. And that kind of goes back to our first myth of when I get there, I'll be happy. The reality is body image is a forever game. You've spent the first 20 plus years of your life hearing stories about bodies in one particular direction. It is going to take you some time and a lot of work to undo that, and it probably will never go away 100% completely, simply because society loves a narrative that makes you hate yourself. So it is up to us to constantly combat that as much as we can. So the reality is that we are not striving to never feel bad about our bodies. We are not striving to perfect our bodies. Instead, we are striving to live an amazing, magical life and try to avoid or to mitigate ourselves, to mitigate our thoughts getting in the way of us living this one magical life. So that means showing up in photos, even if the photos are not flattering. This means going to the beach and wearing a bathing suit so you can hang out with your kids on the beach. Amazing. This means showing up on stage even if you have a double chin. Yes, people don't care. Yeah, it's showing up and living your life with the body that you have in the season that it's in, understanding that your body is going to change continuously. There will be messaging that wants to tell you that that's wrong, but ultimately, our bodies know how to be humans better than our brains do, right? So that's very important for us to understand. All right, so reality number 2. Reality number 2 about body image. It's important for us to recognize that our body is more than just what it looks like. It's more than just its image, but rather it is also how it moves and moves us through this life. And the one question I like to ask people is like, imagine if you were up in the heavens, we'll say, and they were like, okay, kid, you get to go down to earth, but this is the suit that you get to do it in. Are you going to go down and experience life and all the magical things that you've experienced in this life, but using this suit? Are you going to take it, or are you going to stay not experiencing what it means to be a human? And now in this climate, that might be a difficult question to answer, or not difficult. You may be like, I definitely don't want to come down to earth. But the reality is our bodies allow us to experience what it means to be human, right? This is what gets our soul around. Our bodies are the thing that allows us to hold hands, to experience butterflies the first time we feel them, to experience back rubs. God, I love a good back rub. Have your hair played with, baby snuggles, kissing, orgasms. Like, all of these things are what our bodies allow us to experience. And one of the ways that I've kind of helped myself move through like the expectations I put on my body is to say things like, I'm just a consciousness having a human experience. And that seems to have helped make the harder things less difficult to move through, and it makes the positive things actually that much more joyful, because it's a reminder that, yes, without this body, I would not be able to feel the rain on my skin. And now, that's a story that I like to tell, and it's in my book, The Geo Theory, Chipping Away at Body Image. But unfortunately, I lost my dad when he was 47, and that was quite a while now, like 17 years ago. Math is not my strong suit. Yeah, I think it was 17 years ago. And on his last trip to the hospital, he was like hanging out the window. He knew it was going to be his last time out in the world, and it was raining, and he was like hanging his head and arms out the window, kind of like a dog would on a car ride. And my sister was like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And he said, "I just want to remember what it feels like to feel the rain on my skin." And every time I tell that story, I choke up, because it reminds me just how fleeting our experience with these human bodies is, but how beautiful the most basic things are. Feeling wind on your face when you're on the beach, the smell of home-cooked meals. Like, we could not do that without these bodies. And that is the reality. The reality is our bodies allow us to experience everything. And while yes, that also means experiencing the not so good things that come with being a human, but that reminds us we are alive, we are here, we've survived. And I think that is pretty powerful, personally. Reality number 3 is that you only get this one, unless you believe in reincarnation, in which case you may come back as something else. But as of right now, your reality is that this is the body you have. And again, my favorite quote from John C. Maxwell is, "Disappointment is the gap that exists between expectation and reality." And we can want what we want, but we have what we have. And when people talk about like, I'm in my new body when they lose weight, no, that is the same body. It just looks different based on different inputs and outputs. It's not a different body. It is the same body. It was worthy of love when you were in a bigger body, as it is worthy of love when you're in a smaller body. It is not new. It's just different. Right? This is so important for us to shift that. The reality is you don't get a new body throughout your life. You get the same body that undergoes life. That's it. The only before and after you should have is the sonogram from when you were conceived and whatever photo they choose to have of you on your deathbed. That is it. Everything else is just transition. It's just different. It's not bad. It's just different. We've just been taught that certain parts, looking a certain way is bad, but that's not the truth. Okay? It's just different than what we've been taught. And so the reality is we need to foster at least a neutral or accepting relationship of what is in order to relieve ourselves of the stress that body image can cause on us. All right. So that's what I want to encourage you to do today, is kind of think about, how can I begin my journey towards accepting what is instead of constantly pursuing what isn't, because that will help you a little bit more in the mindset realm of what it means to be in a body. All right. In conclusion, it's important essentially to remember that you will have bad body image days. But what is important is to recognize that you are in 100% control of whether or not you let those bad body image days mean something more than what they actually do. And is it going to stop you from living your life? Remember, every thought is created, which means when you have those thoughts, you're able to come up with a new thought that actually helps you get to do the things that you want to do in your life. Remember that you are more than your body. Your body is your partner. It's along for the ride. It's adapting to whatever your priorities are. It's so important for us to recognize that piece of it. It's whether or not we want it, we have it. And it is up to us to take this body on an epic journey of being a human, and whatever that looks like to you. That could look like laying on the grass in the summertime, reading a book in the sunshine. That could look like scaling mountains in Peru. Whatever you desire, it is your body and you're capable of doing whatever you want with it. So my encouragement to you is to reject the myths, accept the realities, and understand that you are more than just your body. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!